The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Mike Zullo, welcome.
Hey, gentlemen. Good afternoon.
It's good to have you. Listen, man, there's just so much we can talk about with this Obama fraud case, and I know I'm blessed to be able to, I'm privileged to be able to get to talk to you quite often, Mike. And so, if I sound like I'm getting ready to say something I shouldn't say, just clear your throat real loudly, and I'll know that I'm supposed to shut up. But I think I can keep all the confidential stuff confidential. But let me just begin here. My good friend Sharon Rondeau, who is the executive editor of the Post and Email on the internet, Post and Email, a news site, and she recently posted an article that just went crazy all over the internet, and it was reposted to P.P. Simmons and went berserk there. And you gave an interview in that article and some information, and so Sharon Rondeau, Post and Email, had this article basically outing an Obama bot, an infamous Obama bot by the name of, he goes by the moniker Dr. Conspiracy, as being tied in to with having some connections with Obama, in that this Obama bot is now working as a so-called government navigator. Fill us in. Just tell us, what is a government navigator? Who is this Dr. Conspiracy? How does he figure into this whole birth certificate investigation? And tell us about that whole thing, Mike.
Well, my understanding that a navigator is an individual hired by the administration to guide people into our new famous health care initiative, forcing everybody to take government-funded health care. The problem that we have with it is this individual, PJ Foggy is what his handle is on a website called the Fogbo, is someone who's not new to us. He is actually an individual that ran into a number of problems regarding his legal standing with I believe it's the California Bar Association. And that individual was under charges, if my memory serves me correct, and was going to lose his license to practice law. And right in those filings, as I believe Sharon Rondeau's put out there, this individual suffers from some kind of emotional distress, which, look, is a tough thing on anybody.
Right.
But
and this is a matter of public record, what you're telling us, right?
It is public record. It's out there to be found.
Yeah.
And, what this individual suffers from is, such a horrific affliction that, it causes some weird delusions, some paranoias, things of that nature. Well, this individual is a staunch supporter of the administration, so much so that, he can't wait, by his own admission, to start helping people get into this. It also should be pointed out that the scheme behind the healthcare initiative is also to register people to vote. So you have a pretty good idea of what the real plot is here, behind that, aside from the, destruction of our economic system. But that individual is in the forefront and has been somebody that's come out against the birther movement in general, and has come out against Sheriff Arpaio's investigation. And these are part of the same individuals that are trying to put forth now their idea of some newfound evidence that totally annihilates the work done by the Arpaio organization. And they're trying to put this out there as if it's from a credible source. Difficult to take information from sources that have such difficulties in their background.
Right.
And especially from sources that, for the most part, want to be anonymous.
Right.
Don't want their identity known.
Oh, yeah.
It makes it very difficult.
Yeah. But he goes by the moniker of Dr. Conspiracy?
No, sir. Dr. Conspiracy is someone else.
Okay, I'm sorry. This guy goes by the moniker of P.J. Foggy.
Correct.
Okay, Fogbo. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so this guy that you're talking about, and so it's a matter of public record, and of course you guys had to investigate it and dig through it and find it, but it's a matter of public record that this guy has mental health issues, and he is working to enroll people in the Obamacare program. Is that what you're saying?
I would say he's got some pretty serious, deficiencies, and the fact is that this individual couldn't pass a background check to get a firearm. this individual, because of what was related in the Bar Association's own record, was so afflicted by these, afflictions that he was going to lose his law license.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty tough road to hoe. And my heart kind of goes out to him on one level.
Right.
But the truth is, I wouldn't want to give my information, my private information, to individuals like this. There's no background checks for these people on the most part. Well, it seems like anybody can get in there and get a job, I guess, if you're affiliated with the right political party.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Isn't this oddly coincidental that this leader, this leader of the Obama bots, this guy who's been championing the cause of the birth certificate, claiming that it is totally legitimate, that he winds up getting this cush position in spite of his background? I mean, isn't that kind of strangely coincidental?
Just to say the least, and my understanding is these jobs pay as much as $48 an hour.
Good gracious!
What does the average guy worker out there make?
Yeah.
$48 an hour.
Yeah, the average guy signing up for Obamacare. Yeah, what does he make? Yeah. Well, now, so Sharon Rondo's article, didn't it talk about a guy that goes by the name Dr. Conspiracy?
I believe it did. Dr. Conspiracy is probably, I would say, he's the lead charger on the anti-birther movement. Kevin Davidson is his name. He first started out as being an anonymous poster as well. That seems to be a current theme with these folks, and there's only about 5 or 6 of them now that are still hanging on the same drum.
Right.
But we've done a little research on him, not a lot, because we really don't have any need to at this point.
Right.
But he was another anonymous poster, and we've got the same access to the same Wayback Machines as everybody else does.
Right.
And he posts that he's blogging under a site saying that he's the person behind Obama conspiracy theories, that he's gained a lot of perspective on conspiracy theories about Barack Obama, and his interest is in providing documentation for claims and counterclaims, which to me is an odd statement. Counterclaims.
Yeah.
Documentation for claims. Are you pursuing the truth, or are you engaged in a war?
Right. Are you engaged in a disinformation campaign? Yeah.
But his background's a little more checkered than that, in the sense that he's got a background in computer science. He has worked his entire career in the field of computer science and worked in vital statistics offices creating vital statistics software. In other words, creating computer systems that create birth certificates was one of the things he's done. And he actually prints on one of his posts that he printed my first COLB in 1978 using a mini computer system that had only 80 megabyte hard drive.
So this guy, wait a minute now. So you're saying that this guy, Dr. Conspiracy, develops software to produce birth certificates digitally, and he is kind of the ramrod of this whole Obama birth certificate fraud thing. I mean, not fraud, excuse me. Let me back up. We're not saying he's the ramrod of the fraud, but we're saying he's the ramrod of trying to proclaim that the birth certificate is not fraudulent.
Yeah, I would say that's actually an understatement. I mean, this guy goes as far now as antagonizing Congressman Stockman by sending him tweets.
No.
Very, derogatory in anything he posts. This whole clan where you have P.J. Foggy, you have Dr. Conspiracy, this other guy, R.C., they're all of the same ilk. And their whole goal, apparently, in life is to do nothing but throw up red herrings and rabbit trails regarding this issue. As far as Dr. Conspiracy is concerned, he had a corporation which he founded and then sold and rolled it into another corporation known as QS Technologies, I believe it is. And he has a software program called QSTVRS.
Uh-huh.
And I'll send you over a link to that. It shows you the screen on how simple it is to create a birth certificate. But what's unique in his software is able to be altered. In other words, configured where you can change information, which I found very, very intriguing. Very difficult to take anything that these people that are so bent on one side of this issue and want to put forth information to you, not under really the guise of helping you. They think they're going to prove you wrong.
Right.
And you have these backgrounds. That's why it's very important for us to source the information.
Right. You got to know who you're dealing with, and that's why. And you've sourced. I mean, when the so-called birthers have brought you information, I mean, you sourced them. You knew them. You got names and addresses and phone numbers, and in some cases affidavits. Right.
Yeah, and I've been straightforward with anybody that wants to give me anything of substance. I'm not talking about a guy who sends me an email. I'm talking about somebody who wants to really supply us information.
Right.
I let them all be, well aware of the fact that we are going to need your identification.
Right.
We are going to run a criminal background check on you.
Right.
We are also going to need to know others involved in helping you getting this information.
Right.
So all those persons could be interviewed.
Right.
And Carl, in a couple of those 15-state trips that I went on, it was the sole purpose to sit down across a table
with
these very individuals,
right,
to meet them face to face and discuss the information they were bringing forward.
Right, right. Okay, thank you for that understanding, Mike. Listen, I just looked at the clock. We're way behind on our first break. When we come back, Mike, we're going to take a couple of phone calls, and then I've got a lot more to ask you, and I know you've got some things you want to reveal as well. So, folks, you don't want to miss this. You're listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. Brandon Gallups, my host, my co-host, and then, of course, Mike Zullo, my guest this afternoon. We'll be right back after.
Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's talk radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
Aren't you glad that you patiently waited? Carl is back. He is in the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio, and you are with him. Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups.
All right. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back, America. Yes, it is Freedom Friday, and Brandon Gallups is my co-host, and my guest this afternoon is Mike Zullo, the lead investigator. So, Brandon, before I get Mike in here, so you're on Dr. Conspiracy's website right now dealing with his software, and you're making, what are you making? What are you doing there?
Absolutely. Right now, I am in the process of creating a birth certificate for Mike Zullo, proclaiming he was born in Kenya.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
Well, there you go, Mike. You should have never told us about this website. You're
the worst thing I ever did.
That's it. You're going to get a birth certificate proclaiming that you are from Kenya, and it's going to be certified by Dr. Conspiracy himself.
With a half-brother named Malik.
Mike Zullo, with a half-brother named Malik. Mike Zullo, how weird is this that this guy who identifies himself as Dr. Conspiracy, we know his name is Kevin Davidson, but he designs and invents software to make digital birth certificates, and he's now connected up and hooked up. He's now a navigator for the Obamacare, and he's one of the top promoters that Obama's birth certificate is completely legitimate.
Carl, let me correct something. Dr. Conspiracy, I know these names get confusing.
Yes, they do.
He is not a navigator. That is P.J. Fox.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I've got these notes here. You're right. Conspiracy. Okay, go ahead. Straighten that out.
Well, it actually gets a little worse than that. It's from my perspective on trusting any information trying to be forcibly sent into the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. Dr. Conspiracy on certain posts has made claims that he has no connection to anyone in Hawaii. He doesn't know anybody in the Department of Health.
Right.
But we found him participating in the same vital statistics organizations that Mr. Onaka has when Mr. Onaka was, in fact, president of those organizations. And that organization was dealing with vital statistic fraud and keeping records safe.
Oh, my gosh.
So there's connections there. And this is why I kept saying, and this isn't the only thing, and this is only the surface. There are connections there. He was part of a corporation. I believe it's NetSmart. I believe they sold software to the state of Hawaii for about $500,000.
Good gracious.
While he was, I believe, president or vice president of that corporation or part of that corporation. Now, he claims he was never vice president of anything, but yet you can find documentation where he clearly is.
Yeah. So that's what one of the things you've been talking about when you said this goes way beyond the birth certificate. I mean, it goes to connections and lies and cover-ups and good gracious.
Well, you've got connections there. You've got connections to the governor of Hawaii, not from conspiracy, but you have connections there. You have a lot of connections.
Yeah.
And, it's becoming very evident to us that this is for lack of a better word, an orchestrated effort.
Right. I tell you what. We've got 40 minutes, more with you, and just a couple timeouts. So let's do this. Let's go straight to the phone lines because we have people that want to talk to you. Dan, thank you so much, and welcome to Freedom Friday. Where are you calling from? Along the Gulf Coast, or are you from out of this area? Where are you calling from, Dan?
Way on the left coast, Los Angeles.
Oh, you're calling from Los Angeles. Well, God bless you. I'm sorry we kept you so long. You have a question for Lieutenant Zullo, Mike Zullo?
Yes, I do. Well, it's more of a thank you and in appreciation. Incredible amount of patience. I have a call waiting beep. Excuse me.
That's okay.
I'll ignore it. And
thank you,
Mr. Zullo. I want to say there's few people that I admire as much as you. I put on the second video bashing the long-form birth certificate on the very same day that Obama made his announcement. About 3 hours later. I don't want to give a reference. I'm not here to plug me, but I saw the obvious fraud as a graphics person within hours, and I went online to show it was a cut-and-paste job. There was no doubt about this, and I was shocked in the long term how nobody picked up the ball on this and how it got shut down. You mentioned this once, within a day, and I still to this day I'm incredulous about how come there isn't thousands of graphics people at least as competent as me that know for an absolute certainty it's a fraud, and very obviously so. Well,
thank you so much, Dan. I'm going to put you on hold so you can continue to listen, and I don't know if you're listening on the Internet or what, but thank you so much for listening, and thanks for calling, Dan. Mike, you want to address that?
Well, it's a shock to everybody, but let me say something, Carl. We have been focused on this issue, and, your listeners, everybody is so intently focused on the birth certificate. And I just really want to make it clear. The birth certificate, as it's in the form that it is now, a PDF file,
right,
is absolutely of no evidentiary value.
Right. It's useless. You can't take it anywhere and do anything with it. Yeah.
It is useless, and it doesn't really matter to an extent other than from a conspiratorial standpoint in the commission of felonies.
Right.
It doesn't matter about all these anomalies because this thing has no evidentiary value.
Right.
It's nothing. It is absolutely nothing, and the American people were shown absolutely nothing.
Right. Yet people still hang their whole identification of this man on that birth certificate that means absolutely nothing.
That's 100% true. It is, and that's what it was designed to do.
Yeah.
And, you could almost look at it in a sense of a nice big piece of propaganda.
Yeah.
You keep saying the lie, showing the lie enough times, and the masses, which is what they were counting on, will just buy it.
Will just buy the lie. Mike Zullo, will you please hang over for a little bit longer?
Sure.
Okay, good. We're going to take a time out, folks. We're at the bottom of the hour. Mike Zullo will be with us for the next segment. My co-host this afternoon, Brandon Gallups. Mallory Bardwell, your world-famous...
Friday with Carl Gallups, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio.
All right, welcome back. And we're going to keep telling the truth, and we're going to keep bothering people. And, yes, I am that one man, Carl Gallups. My co-host this afternoon, Brandon Gallups. And our guest this afternoon is Mike Zullo, the lead investigator of the cold case posse, Sheriff Arpaio Obama fraud case. Mike, thank you so much for hanging on. Listen, we've had several callers during the break that were just freaking out about a statement you made. I'm going to give you an opportunity to straighten that out. That you made a statement that the birth certificate, the PDF birth certificate file is of no evidentiary value. I know exactly what you mean by that, but make it very clear for our listeners.
Yeah, Carl, I apologize if it didn't come out the right way because I've said this on other occasions. The PDF file in its present form, in other words, as a PDF file, an image,
right,
is of no evidentiary value. In other words, you cannot take that PDF file and use it as a legitimate birth certificate.
Right.
Because it just isn't.
That's right.
You need a hard copy document that has a state seal on it and register stamps that could be verified to some level.
Right.
And this thing just doesn't do that.
Right.
So constantly, shifting gears and looking at this anomaly and that anomaly. Look, we know the anomalies are there.
Right.
We know this thing is plagued with problems. That's not the issue any longer. The fact is it has no evidentiary value as a birth certificate.
Right.
Because it is not a birth certificate.
It is not a birth certificate. It's a fabricated, fraudulent mess. And
I want to point out that during the press conference, the President of the United States never held it, never took possession of it.
Right.
And White House counsel said he's never even seen it.
Right. Right. There you go.
They're insulating him from it.
Right. Exactly. And so what you meant by no evidentiary value is the fact that it's just a useless piece of paper, but that does not take away from the fact that there is criminal activity in the fabrication of it and the presentation of it as his identifying document. I mean, somebody forged a document. Somebody created a document. Somebody committed some felonies. So it is of criminal value, but it's no evidentiary value as far as him taking that or anybody taking it and using it as a birth certificate. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, you can print that thing out 1,000 times and it's never worth anything more than the paper it's printed on.
Okay, good. Well, for our listeners, I hope that helps. Okay, let me see. We've got another person here that wants to talk to you, Mike. Hold on just a moment. Welcome, Joe, through Freedom Friday. Thank you so much. Joe, where are you calling from, by the way? You're along the Gulf Coast or from out of the area code?
Oh, I'm downtown Pace, Brother Carl.
Okay, good. You're right.
I just want to call and say thank you, Lord, for you and Mr. Zulu and all of you that are doing the good work. Please continue it and keep it up. I wish I could get in there and help you any way in the world I could. And if I can, just let me know and I will.
Well, you can. There's several ways, Joe. First of all, thank you for listening. Thank you for staying engaged in what's going on with all of this. Secondly, tell people about this and drive them to our websites. And then thirdly, I'm going to ask you, Mike Zulo's not, but I'm going to ask you, donate and get other people to donate to the Cold Case Posse, because this investigation's still rolling along. We're still moving it to Congress, and it's all being done with non-taxpayer dollars. In other words, the folks of Maricopa County are not paying for this. This is being done with donations from all over the United States. So thank you, Joe. And those are some things you can do to help immediately as we keep moving it forward. All right, Mike Zulo, back to you. And folks, if you want to be a part of the show, 623-1330, 623-1330, area code 850. Mike Zulo, and the phone lines are still ringing. Mike, tell us what's going on with this Xerox workplace debacle. I mean, we've been talking about that for a while, but that seems to be a big smokescreen. Give the folks the facts on that.
I'm sorry, Carl, you cut out there. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. What's going on with this so-called, I think it's a smokescreen that Obots are throwing out there about the Xerox workplace machine? And, I mean, what's the latest you can tell us on all that?
Yeah, apparently once they realized that we had Congressman Stockman extremely engaged, I believe they panicked. And they tried to put forth now a theory that a Xerox copier that purportedly by their account was located in the White House and is responsible for creating all the anomalies that you see on this birth certificate document.
Right.
One of these Obots goes by the name RC, unidentified by his own choice.
Right.
Is spearheading this, trying to force this information into the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. And I've said this repeatedly, and I'm going to say it again. If you have information, substantial information, that you believe could negate our claims, I have no adversity to meeting with you. Just re-understand and remember that I will need your identification. I will need you to have your material. I will need an affidavit from you, and I will also need the names of everyone who helped you compile it.
Right.
Just like I did with every birther.
Right.
Everybody that came forth on the other side of this equation, we took the same tact with. And the reason is we can't have anonymous internet posters, bloggers, people from other countries trying to send us information, thinking they're going to bog us down into looking at this.
Right.
And I can tell you that what's been sent in thus far does not do what they say.
Right.
And they claim, and even in their own little hub, they go and say that they can't reproduce certain anomalies on this thing. They use words like amazingly close, extremely similar. Let me give you a little word analogy, a little picture, if you will. Carl, when you were a cop, if you came up to a hit-and-run accident and there was a vehicle that was struck, the other driver, flees the scene, and they tell you it was a yellow car.
Uh-huh.
And you look down and there's a yellow hunk of paint chip on the roadway. Right. You pick it up. You do what every cop does. You go down 10 blocks and you look for this car, see if somebody tried to park it somewhere.
Right.
You find a yellow car that has some fender damage on it. You get out. You take that little paint chip and you hold it next to the car. Now, the color is really similar, really close.
Right.
Let me ask you, is that the guy you're looking at? Is that the guy that hit the car? Is that the car that struck the other car? Yeah. Are you going to base your arrest on really close?
Right. I got you. Yeah. Yeah. No, I got you. So what you're saying then, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the evidence presented thus far with this Xerox workplace machine is there are some things that are close, but no cigar. It does not reproduce all of the anomalies that are produced on that fraudulent fabrication, correct?
Well, the fact is it's suspect. It's suspect on a number of levels because you can reproduce the anomalies of this birth certificate on a PC or a Mac. You can reproduce it by massaging a whole bunch of different programs. That's what we did in our original testing. You had to give us almost a recipe of disaster.
Right.
To allow this thing to do what it did.
Right.
They're trying to claim this one machine does it all, and I am going to tell you, it does not. And I'm going to share something else with your listeners. This little band of merry men think they know what we know.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, they don't. They have no idea, and they have no idea who our computer and scientific experts truly are.
Right, I know. I mean, the stuff that you tell me is overwhelming, and you still know tons of stuff that I don't know. They don't even have they're not even scratching the surface as to what you know, and but yet they sit around and talk to themselves as though they know everything. It's absolutely amazing. Can we take another call, Mike?
Sure.
Okay, let's go back to the phone lines. Bill, thank you so much for listening to Freedom Friday. From where are you calling, Bill? What part of the country?
I live in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay, from North Carolina. Bill, go ahead. You have a question for Mike Zullo.
Well, you guys were talking about me. I'm Foggy online.
Oh, hey, Foggy online. Well, thank you for listening to the show.
And you were claiming that I never identify myself, but of course I did call. I did get in contact with Mike Volan and gave him my real name, where I live, and he decided he didn't want to talk to me, but
okay. Well, what's your question? And you are the world famous Foggy, right?
Well, I'm not world famous, you know.
I know, but
I'm famous among the birthers, which is a very tiny group of people right now.
Oh yeah, we're tiny. Yeah, we sure are. Keep living that. But anyway, listen. Get to your point.
Posting online at your website and at
Foggy. Get to your point. Get to your point, so I don't cut you off. Get to your point with Mike.
There are not very many of you left anymore. It's kind of
Foggy. Do you have a point? Do you have a question?
No.
Okay. Bye. Bye. I mean, it's like a pigeon showing up and pooping on your head. Mike, I don't know what to say. You know, what you said about that guy in the beginning, some of the public record stuff, he just called up and proved it.
Yeah, I know. You know, Carl, my heart really does go out to him. I can't imagine, and I'm just going to commit to pray for his health. I just hope everything worked out for him.
Yeah, thank you. Me too. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart, and I know you do too, Mike. Foggy, first of all, thanks for listening to North Carolina. And, we've got callers from coast to coast. We've just proven that today. A guy from California and a guy from North Carolina. There's coast to coast. But Foggy, I mean, you called up. You had an opportunity to ask a question and to bring some information to the table, to bring something worthwhile, and all you did was to call up and to try to poop on the show. I mean, Foggy, that's just so typical. You brought no facts, no information, nothing of value. You just called up to go off. And good gracious, I mean, if I was Obama, I'd be terrified that you were on my side.
Well, Carl, and that's the problem with a lot of this.
Yeah.
These folks want to supply me with information and think just because they're giving it to me, right, I'm going to accept it as the gospel truth.
Right.
And when you get, Foggy isn't the one that's in this little group that's doing this now. And this is a guy, RC. Some other anonymous blogger, NBC. All I know about this guy is he's got a foreign accent. I don't even know if he's in the United States.
Right.
And you've got RC, pulling in Dr. Conspiracy.
Right.
RC has done me a favor. You've given me 3 individuals that mandate an interview.
Right.
They need to be questioned.
Right.
And you want to give me an affidavit, supply everybody's contact information, and I will pursue it. But if you think you're just going to give me your recipe, your test that you did, after weeks and weeks of testing. Let me just be clear about something. If this thing did what they claim it could do, it would have been one button push and over in 30 seconds.
Right. And
I don't think we didn't test birth certificates on banks of different copiers.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm struggling with what to say and what not to say because of things you've shared with me. Well, listen, Mike, good gracious, I've lost my train of thought now because there was something else I wanted to ask you about that very thing. I can't remember. I tell you what, let's do, though. I do need to take a break, Mike, and when we come back, I'm going to ask you more about I know what I was going to ask you. Verify this, and then I'll go to break. Isn't it a fact, and if it's not, please say so, but I think it's a fact that just in the last couple of days you've had yet another congressman contact you who has been given a ton of information, and now he wants to speak with you about this personally. Isn't that correct?
That's true. Congressman was given information by Mike Volan, and there was no presentation done for me. And my understanding now is this congressman is attempting to set up a time where he and I can talk for about an hour.
Okay, good deal. And that's just to get the information out to people that, we are engaged with congressmen, and congressmen are engaging Mike Zullo and the Cold Case Posse. Mike has not been lying to you about this. It's just a long, slow, tedious process, and it's a process of education. But it is happening, so hang in there and be patient. All right, let's take this time out. When we come back, more of Mike Zullo and more questions and answers. And if you want to be a part of the show, 623-1330. Area code 850. Isn't it awesome that Foggy was listening from North Carolina to every word that Carl Gallup says? And he absolutely verified right here for your ears what Mike Zullo said when we opened this segment with Mike Zullo. See what happens when you listen to Freedom Friday? Aren't you glad that you're here? We'll be right back.
Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's Talk Radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
If Carl doesn't talk about it, it probably won't be talked about. Aren't you glad that he is on the air and back in the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio? Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, 1330 WEBY.
All right. Welcome back, Gulf Coast. Welcome back, America, from California to North Carolina and everybody in between. God bless you. I want to give a shout-out to a local business here that keeps us on the air, the local yokel, Claude and Melanie Duvall, right here at the corner of U.S. Highway 90 East. It cuts all across the Gulf Coast and comes right through Northwest Florida. Highway 90 East and Ward Basin Road. The local yokel is 4 businesses in one. It's a convenience store, a gas station, a deli, a car wash, and Claude and Melanie Duvall own it, and people around here just love them. At the gas station, you can get 100% ethanol-free gasoline, one of the few places in this whole region where you can do that. Also a deli, fresh fried and baked chicken and fresh vegetables, and you can eat in. Got a little restaurant area, or you can take it out. A car wash, touchless, state-of-the-art car wash. Only place I get my cars touched when I'm in Northwest Florida, right here. A convenience store with some 5,000 individual items. That's the local yokel, Claude and Melanie Duvall. Tell them that you appreciate them supporting Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. They're great, great people. Hey, Mike, thank you for hanging on. A couple of things. First of all, we've had several tweets come in, people wanting to know, aren't you afraid to discuss some of this evidence over the radio, knowing that Big Brother listens to us? I mean, we got proof of that with one of the Obots that listens from North Carolina.
I really, I'm really not, because it seems that the level of eavesdropping capability that Big Brother has, I don't think there's too much that they don't know.
Yeah, I know. They probably listen to every phone conversation you and I have as well.
Yeah, I think that's what they meant, was when you're discussing evidence and phone calls and stuff, I think that's what they meant. 'Cause they specifically mentioned when you're discussing your evidence.
Yes.
Are you worried about people listening into that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mike. How do you want to answer that?
Well, I'm sure they're listening to it, but I can assure you I am giving you the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
I'm not foolish. I'm not going to come out here and give you the nuts and bolts of anything, not because I don't love you all. It's just because other people are listening.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I know you and I talk in code a lot, and we've been together in person, so we've got all that worked out, and we know what to do and what not to do. But thank you for those of you that have been tweeting us and been concerned about that. And Mike is a super, super smart cop, and I'm not that smart, but I used to be a cop, and I know how all that works, so thank you for that. Well, Mike, listen, let me just ask you, we've only got a few minutes, but this guy, RC, you mentioned him 3 or 4 times. He's one of the Obots as well. And apparently this dude I mean, talking about having some problems, some emotional problems, in my opinion. But this dude has called the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office several times, apparently, speaking with different officers and even some supervisors about you and the investigation, and even asking about me. I understand. I mean, what's going on with all that? I mean, isn't this the same dude that I listened in on a phone conversation one time when he called you and went off on you?
Yeah, and this is the same guy that after that phone conversation that you listened to, which I really do believe was divine intervention, he tried to put in a false accusation against me that I had threatened him in that phone call, and I think the fact that you were on the phone thwarted that attempt.
Right. Yeah.
He is known to the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. You know, if he keeps calling up, I think he's on his third supervisor now.
Right.
He's trying to get them to talk to him about this investigation. You know, knock yourself out, guys. If that's what you want to do, keep going at it, because it's not going to do anything. He's hell-bent on trying to, again, stuff this Xerox thing down our throat. He thinks by calling and telling the administration there that we should shut this down.
Right.
You know, things of that nature. You know, do what you got to do. I really personally don't care. I can tell you this. Sheriff Arpaio is as engaged as ever. As a matter of fact, I spoke to him now 30, 40, 55 minutes ago. This is not going to stop.
Right.
So you can do what you want to do. If you have this information, I just told you earlier how to do it. I know all these guys listen to you, Carl. So they know the procedure. They know what they're going to have to do.
Right, right. And the thing is, you are the lead investigator in this case, assigned by Sheriff Arpaio. You represent him around the nation. Actually, you represent him around the world. He is still engaged. You speak with him all the time. You just spoke with him less than an hour ago. This is not going away. You are reporting directly to him. Sheriff Arpaio knows what's going on with this investigation. And so they can call. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office is huge. And I know, I used to work for a large sheriff's office, and I know when I was involved in an investigation, not everybody, not even a lot of the supervisors knew the details of those investigations. So, like you said, I guess they can just keep knocking themselves out and live in their own little beautiful mind, thinking that they're making some inroads. But I guess they're kind of being laughed at by the guys up in the sheriff's office when it's all said and done.
Well, in part of the conversation that I understand, he is complaining that I am pulling in innocent people into this, and I am saying now that they're all persons of interest.
Yeah.
You know, that thinking it's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
This guy has pursued me for 2.5 years. I don't interact with him. I've got email chains from this guy taunting me.
Right.
He interjects himself into this, and then he wants to cry.
Yeah. He interjects himself into your life for 2.5 years, or 2 years. And then when you do engage him just a little bit, he calls the sheriff's office and cries and says, Mike won't leave me alone.
Cry all you want. Record any conversation you want. I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't want to be known, hang up the phone, brother.
Well, here is a perfect example. I mean, Foggy just couldn't have given us a better gift. I mean, here's a perfect example. He gets in, he gets through the screeners, he's on the air. I'm courteous to him. I say, hey, ask your question, fire away. He doesn't have a question. He doesn't have any facts. All he wants to do is just cry.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what, Carl? I think at this point...
Got 15 seconds.
For the sake of your listeners, I think I'm going to turn off the switch on this group of guys. There's 5 or 6
I
of them.
agree.
They have their own little talk line.
I agree. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of your time. Mike,
It is a waste. Now, if they come through with an affidavit, and not an affidavit signed by Dr. Conspiracy, because quite frankly, RC is the one that's out there saying he's doing all this work.
Right. Mike, I had to cut you off because we're out of time. We're going to have you back on very soon, Mike. Folks, you've been listening to Freedom Friday. Carl Gallup.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.